Lorilei Potvin. I tell you a little bit about the show. We'll get to our main guest, who I want to give a huge shout out. They came at last minute. I really appreciate it because our scheduled guest, kind of work he does, you know what, he doesn't plan what happens, and we'll talk a bit more about that. But if you're just joining me for the first time, the Angel Rock, I cover all aspects of the paranormal or the supernatural, anything, sometimes some conspiracy theory that we got to be a little careful. Also, anything within the paranormal realm, power of the mind, power of positivity. A little bit about myself. I have, first of all, I want to say I have guests from regular fields of all walks of life, and through the work that they're doing, they're making a positive change for humanity. It could be for what they're sharing, what they're teaching, whatever it may be. I also have my partner in crime. He's the host of the Delicious Recipe Tuesday, the Dell. I am a Canadian psychic medium. I'm also crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic record practitioner, spiritual teacher and mentor. I'm also a registered nurse. We are also well versed in the paranormal. Del and I, we've shared our story on the Travel Channel's Paranormal Survivor. It's just so you know that. And tonight I have an amazing guest. His son and I have been trying to make this happen. We're in the same group, and I think it's for sharing podcasts. And I thought, yeah, these guys have a YouTube channel. I want to make sure I get the names right. We've got Jimmy on the left and
How you doing?
Right, Salinas. They have a podcast they do together all about the paranormal. Now, if you guys, I'll let you guys tell a little bit about it. It's Bo Talks with Big Jim, right? The podcast.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so,
Yeah.
and tell us, like, what's your podcast about?
Do you want to start first, or do you want me to start first?
Hey, you're the boss. You go ahead.
Okay. So really, what started it was definitely this whole pandemic. Like most podcasts nowadays, I had the idea and I started it. I had a few episodes where it was just me, and then my wife was like, "You know what? You should really get your dad on there because you guys can talk nonsense back and forth." So I was like, "Okay, go ahead."
Like every time we connect, we call it table talk, and it doesn't matter how long or how short we see each other, we could talk for hours. We're like two pecking hens. We just chop it up.
I could talk forever. I do want to remind everybody, I forgot to tell them, we normally have 2 YouTube channels, but YouTube is not happy with us. So we're not a main UPRN channel. We are on the UFO Paranormal Radio channel. Come on over there on YouTube because I keep an eye on the chat and I like to involve you guys as part of the show. We're also streaming live on 4 channels on Facebook, many of groups, anywhere where I've shared it, you'll see it live, as well as Twitch. So come on over here because I'll see the comments. I can see it in StreamYard, but I can't. Del can see it as well, and probably you guys too in the chat. But we can't respond to it. But if you come over here, Zach Man's here already, one of our regular subscribers. You found us, Zach. Welcome. They like to ask questions, comments, because I hate when I go to a podcast or a live and I like flying by, even on slow mode, right? But when like, why am I here watching your show? Like, you're just ignoring what I'm saying. And it's like, so I like to involve people when they come.
Mm-hmm. I'm all for it. Let's do it.
So, sorry, well, just kind of continue. But yeah, so we just started talking about random stuff and eventually got to a point where we started talking about people in history and then started talking about true crime. And then we started doing our own personal ghost stories of him, myself, and our family, and a family friend of ours, and so far, and since then it's just been kind of going from there.
Well, we're going to get to that tonight. I want to give Del a chance to talk. Del, you might as well tell people where to find your podcast too at the beginning here. I'm going to be with you tomorrow night, but go ahead because poor Del's sitting in the corner there.
Yes, you can check me out there on here on UPRN. It's Tuesday nights at 9 Eastern. That's 8 Central for the rest of the people that don't know what Eastern time is. So, and it's the Delicious Recipe, and I talk about conspiracies, mystery, and history, and trying to figure out what the past is, because like what you guys did on your channel there, or what you guys are talking about, is our history is really muddled, and I think there's a real problem with history, even when it goes into looking into back cultures and stuff like that, like looking in even here in North America. And if you want to go and deal with Bible stuff there too, is that history doesn't sort of coalesce nicely at all, and timelines don't match up. What you have in South America to North America to Europe to Africa to Australia, nothing matches up, but there's so many little mysterious things out there. And even on what I've been getting into is talking about cryptids and like Bigfoot and little people and that through the native cultures in North America. And it's a really strange that this is a topic that's sort of been sort of quietly talked about in the native cultures, but they're well aware of it, that this is going on, and that there's something else out there.
Well, I have to agree with you guys. And I was going to just add, that's what happened with Del, because he was digging into the truth, and he'd share it with me. And I said, you know what? I'm really grateful that you share this with me. It's interesting, but you need to share this with the rest of the world. And it sounds like you guys have made that transition. So, I know, Jimmy, you've told me, we've never talked live before, that you guys have had a lot of paranormal experience, right? Unexplained. I'd love to hear something about it.
Yeah, I think actually I'll let him start.
I meant
because
Jim, after I thought about that, but I didn't want to cut you up. I mean, both of you, please tell us about because the show's always about my guests too. So we want to hear your experiences and what you got into this for, and what happened, because nobody's experiences seem to be ever the same, which is puzzling in some ways, right? Like,
well, that's the exciting part.
Yeah,
nothing's repeated. So, but as for me, the reason why, I mean, I've been listening to podcasts since the early 2000s. And when he asked me to be on his show, to me, I took the opportunity as just prior to that, I was already doing a vlog of my own. I have 3 boys, him, Joaquin, his middle brother, and his younger brother, Javen. Okay. And I took a bunch of life experiences that they were going through, relationships, breakups, fatherhood, buying his first home, just things that they're going through. So I started talking to my cell phone and recording these conversations that I would have for them. Reason being is, you being a registered nurse, I'm a heart patient. So I've been disabled since 2012. Since 2008, actually, I had heart surgery. And from that point forward, things just escalated and my conditions got worse. As of right now, I'm obviously 51. I've made it. I'm above ground. So any day for me is a good day above ground. Anything else is piece of cake.
Amen to that.
Yeah. So when he asked me, I was like, yeah, I kind of figured that if I could do this with little Jim or Bo, the internet's going to outlive me. So if he ever needs me and he ever needs to see my face or just laugh between him and I, he's going to have YouTube and these recordings forever. So he's going to outlive me, and hopefully there's some information that I'll leave in my cell phone or on the YouTube channel or the podcast that he'll be able to reflect on forever. And my granddaughter.
What a beautiful legacy. And I apologize ahead of time. Everybody knows this, but up here in Canada, we're about north of Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're close, but our internet is lower. So it'll seem like there's a pause. So if I talk over you by accident, I apologize. Sorry, Del, were you going to pop anything in there? You look like you were going to add something.
No, I think that's a really great sort of thing, because that's what I actually started thinking about when I started the delicious recipe was like I don't have kids myself, but maybe like my nieces and nephews or anybody down the family line, they can go and pull up who was Del Lessie or the delicious Del, and they can go in and pull up something if I'm not banned or removed from YouTube anywhere. That they go and says, oh, that was part of the family line. Oh, this is what this person thought. Oh, what an interesting person. Maybe I'm sort of like that person. Maybe I had this sort of similar thoughts. Maybe there's something out there that's the whole thing, is like bringing a wide audience or a wide family stuff, just anything, wide experiences into a smaller thing, bringing it closer together, and maybe that might be similar.
Well, exactly, and that's kind of what I wanted to do, and to answer a question that you were talking about, Lorilei. 20 years ago, you wouldn't talk about this in public. No. The conversations we're having, we wouldn't speak of it. People would look at you if you're crazy or you're loaded. Yeah. Well, we're kind of probably both, but the point is, you wouldn't do it in public. Now, the format and the internet, it's uncensored. It's a free for all.
Depends
Well,
who you are, because at Joe on here, Joe's been doing this for 30 years. This network's been around for, I think, 17 or 18 years.
wow.
Having
It's a
trouble.
long time.
We have between any time, we have live hosts between, I think, 15 and 18, but we have about 40 to 60 different hosts that syndicate to this network. And we keep getting slapped with stuff talked about, because there's a long list. I was just watching it on YouTube about what you can talk about and what you can't. But I think this is a beautiful gift. What you're doing, Big Jim, is because working in palliative care, you're right. My son has actually tattooed on his left shoulder a handwritten note he asked me to write. He said, Mom, I know maybe there's going to be a day where you may never be here with me. I'll always have you with me, because I'm going to be 56 in August. I'll just turned, you will be 51. So we're your age group. So you start to think about mortality, and especially after what you've been through yourself. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad to see you're still here. And what after you're leaving your family.
Oh yeah. Initially, when I have a ICD, an implant cardiac device. Well, my first device failed, and so I went through heart failure for a month, and the doctors thought I just had pneumonia. So, really long story short, I guess it'll be a segue into my first story, which I would say it was a near death experience. So it was a Christmas around 2012, and I couldn't sleep. So going through heart failure, you're in a lot of pain. Your muscles hurt, your back, everything hurts. You can't use the restroom right. Your appetite is shot, everything. So I was literally taking naps, maybe 2-3 minutes at a time without panicking, because that's basically the big sign is it feels like you're falling backwards. Mm-hmm. And every time I'd close my eyes, whether I was sitting up or laying down, I felt like I was falling backwards. So I stayed up for 5 days. Finally, the 5th day, I ended up laying on my stomach. And as you know now, that's kind of like a relief for people who are going through COVID, is they lay them on their stomach to release some of the pressure off their lungs so they can breathe correctly. Well, I found out that I was able to lay down, and I got extremely comfortable on the couch. Mm-hmm. So I closed my eyes, and I was like, oh, wow, I'm actually going to get some sleep. Well, in my sleep, I was either having a dream or I was having some sort of a cognitive. I was having some sort of a vision of my grandmother. Now, my grandmother passed away in 2005. Mm-hmm. And at the time, we were living in Arizona. She was living here in California, where we live now. Mm-hmm. And so at the memorial, they had pictures of her when she was younger, obviously, as a memorial to all of her age groups. And I ended up taking a picture from one of the tables of her, and I put it in my bag. After the service, I flew back home, which was in Arizona, and I packed it away. Didn't think about it for 4 years. Well, in my dream, the picture that I ended up taking was of my grandmother. Now, my grandmother's Mexican. She was Spanish and Mexican descent. And they wear these things, they're these long, very colorful dresses, real skinny halter top style shirts. And now my grandmother was pretty rigid. She was pretty much a hardcore lady. She really didn't take too much from anybody. And
pretty much? No, she was.
Yeah. So I can remember laying down, and obviously, you know, you see these pictures or these videos of people having these experiences. Well, I remember laying on my couch on my stomach, and there was a lady over me smacking me in my head, like telling me, "Get up, dummy. Get up, dummy." Right? I'm like, "What are you doing?" And I can remember telling my grandmother, "Okay, I'll get up. Why are you hitting me?" Now, my grandmother was maybe 5 foot on with heels. She was very short, but spunky.
My grandma.
There you go, right? Tiny but tough. And so she kept telling me, get up. Don't you know? You just need to get up. And she kept calling me stupid. Well, it doesn't bother me that somebody's calling me stupid, but for her, it just wasn't typical. She used the F word more than anything. Oh. So hearing it, the word stupid that wasn't her character. So all I remember was this lady smacking me in my head. And then all of a sudden, I could see myself laying on the couch with my hands over my head on my belly. And I was like, oh, wow, who's that lady? But I'm telling myself, looking at me, and I'm looking at my grandmother in this photo or the picture. And so I ended up waking up, got in the shower, told my wife to take me to the hospital. Basically, my heart was functioning at 13%.
Oh, wow.
So my device failed probably weeks beforehand. So they ended up hooking me up to telemetry, and I had to wait for after the holiday. So I was in the hospital, and doctor came back. He's like, Dr. K. And he's like, dude, I can't believe you made it through that.
Sure.
I'm like, made it through what? He's like, this is your heart rhythmic pattern. And then, you have the upper and lower chambers. So they're in sequential order. I was barely functioning off the upper chambers of my heart.
Atrial fibrillation, is that what he told you?
Pretty much. My heart had already failed. My lungs were full of blood. I
very easily when something, you were lucky. It sounds like that woman who you believed to be your grandmother,
mm-hmm.
and she probably used you, knowing that would get your attention.
Yeah.
Get up. This isn't normal. Like you said, she may have used the F word more often.
Oh, yeah. The F word was very common for her.
Yeah. Now you're going to have to talk after this if you're open to it, because the book I'm writing one about our journey with autism, my youngest son, our paranormal experience, and they all interrelate. But the third one is mostly for nurses, maybe some first responders, but I'm getting a lot of stories, or even a story like yours. Something miraculous happened that's unbelievable, whether you want to call it paranormal or a near-death experience. And I've studied near-death experiences for 40 years. I believe I've had one as a toddler. But the thing is that she saved your life, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know who that person was initially until like I said, my wife convinced me Jimmy was 16. His youngest brother was 2. So I knew initially if something would have happened to me, he would have assumed the role of being a father and, taking care of his mom as well. And I didn't want that. So I came home back to the Bay Area, is where we live. So unpacking all of our boxes, and we move into the house that we moved into, and we're unpacking. And one of the boxes I opened was, boom, the photograph of my grandmother in that dress that I now keep on the top of my bed right over my head all the time. So whether she's my guardian angel or my savior, I'm going to say yes to all that. But you're right. She had passed away in 05, 04, 05. And just out of nowhere, she saved my life. Yeah. And another thing, I worked in construction myself since I was 7. So I kind of get the idea of what the gentleman was talking about, not being hungry during work hours. Yeah. And so what happened initially with my heart is I caught a tooth infection called bacterial endocarditis. Mm-hmm. And that basically saved my life as well. And I say that because I was born with a heart defect. 2 of my ventricles to my aorta were fused. Mm-hmm. So instead of having both chambers, instead of having the 4, I had 3. Well, the endocarditis infiltrated the heart and I got sepsis. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know what it was. I had the chills. I was sweating. And we lived in Arizona, and it was June, and I was freezing.
It's hot in June.
And I'm cold as hell. I had to sit in my truck, turn on the heater so I could break the chill.
Well, in Arizona, they're full of super hot, dry heat and scorpions.
Oh, and snakes.
Scorpions, spiders,
brown recluses.
And our chat is we tease him. He's our resident whiskey and cigar guy. So we're in a host chat. We got another paranormal host, Michael Angley. He always says, Zach, if you're in the chat, what would you recommend for a cigar and whiskey for the situation? So we're like a big family here. But you're
right on.
That's awesome.
Something wasn't right because no way you should have been feeling that way. And you got the damage that you do because it sounds like from the tooth infection.
Right.
Saved your. That is something that we would call a congenital heart defect that killed you, and they would never have known about it, right?
No, would have never known it. But and then during all the MR, because they didn't know why my blood cells were so elevated, my white blood cells. So I had some sort of a virus. They did the HIV, cancer, AIDS, every viral test they could, and they couldn't figure out what was going on.
Your heart is the main cause, I would.
Yeah, so the heart was the issue. I had an infection of vegetation, and it was basically like my heart was just turned into Swiss cheese, the aorta valve. Wow. But talking about, I was doing some work for a lady. Her name was Bobby. We'll just call her Bobby. And she worked as a hospice nurse. And this goes to intuition. She was a hospice nurse for like 25 years. I had already been doing work for her off and on. And at this particular time, I had to go hang some ceiling fans. Monday morning, I go. We knew each other by first name basis. She always left the door unlocked for me. I'd knock and then I'd come in. Well, at this particular day, I knocked. She opens the door and she looked at me and she's like, "There's something going on with you." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "There's just something. I've been working hospice my entire life, and I know when people are ill." And I'm like, and that, mind you, the day before is when I caught the chills and I didn't know what was wrong. I was like, "Bobby, I don't know. I did have a cold maybe." She's like, "No, there's something going on with you." Well, about 2 hours later, I'm in her attic doing some rewiring for some ceiling fans. And then the hospital called me. He said, "I don't know where you're at, Mr. Salinas, but you need to stop what you're doing. We're going to send an ambulance to you. You need to get in fast." So I crawled down and I'm talking to Bobby. I said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry. I'm not going to be able to finish this job, but the wiring is done. Somebody can."
How scary is that? Is that they call you as you're touching live wires?
Well, it's all scary, son. It's all scary.
That's a really crazy thing, and this is one thing that I've mentioned, and Lowell even tested is that I see sort of. I'm not saying that I see this, but I pick up on energy, and I relate it to colors. I don't relate it to anything. So when I see somebody, I can sort of like whether or not they're BS or they're happy or they're whatever. But this lady, as they're going up there, she notices, says, "I pick up on your aura that you're not well," and
right.
And then you just kept on going. I'm going to do this, and then you all of a sudden, you got to go to the hospital right now.
Yeah.
So when you came down the ladder, she said, "I told you so."
It's exactly what she said. She actually did. She grabbed my hand, like, because I was telling her at the time I had a flip phone. So this was how long ago I had a flip phone, and I said, "Bobby, I just got a call from Thunderbird Samaritan. That was a hospital in Arizona." Yeah. She's like, "I knew it. I told you I saw something around you, and I didn't like it this morning. And unfortunately, I never went back to finish the job." Mm-hmm. And I actually never went back and spoke to her again. But she was right. She had the intuition, like you said, as a registered nurse. You have that instinct after a while when when somebody's going to pass.
Right. It's your color. But I want to build a little bit on what Del said. I will attest to this. And I haven't listened to him in the past. Okay. He has never been wrong. And this color system does not follow. Blue means this, purple means this. When you see it, he has his own color coding and he will tell me. And I'll say, "No, you're wrong about that person. Like, I've never seen this." He has never been wrong. Yes, there's many nurses that are in the field that I would call myself being in a light worker or a healer. Mm-hmm. And I'm a doctor. I don't mean that, but like with energy and stuff like that. So yes, we do develop a sixth sense. That's what's going into my book. I realized I didn't finish that, is stories of the miraculous things that nurses on the job that we see. I can tell you, being a night nurse, I used to work on a cardiac step-down unit. I worked critical care, people on telemetry, we had chemo, we had everything. I had just gotten out a report. I used to have 60 patients and the other nurse would have 60 patients. And we were both new grads. We both same university, okay? I listened to a report and I hear, and at the time I didn't know it was my guides, and I hear, "You need to go to that room immediately." And it would have been the last room I checked. It would go down the right-hand side, go all the way around, I walked in there and I watched a poor gentleman keel over in cardiac arrest. We weren't able to see him, but the thing is to walk in at that second and hear that. And there's so many experiences like that. I'm not the only one. And I think as nurses, yeah, and I think women, not just all women, I think all of us have this, whether you call it your gut or your intuition, but especially as a nurse, you start to develop that sixth sense, if you will. You And she probably saw also a little bit about your color, because if it was your heart, I'll bet you probably just a little bit, your lips probably just had a little bit of a blue ring. Never mind that she said the energy, she could feel your different. So that makes sense. Sorry, Del, something else you wanted to add? Poor Jimmy, we have to give him a chance to talk.
Well, this is so interesting. I love the part there. You got the family there dealing with or putting out this podcast. What is the podcast called again?
Botox with Big Jim.
Yeah. So this is great, and this is what I like. We talked about this at the beginning. Is that putting something down there that's out there, and hopefully it doesn't get destroyed by the powers that be. But I think there's a lot of stories that are out there that are really, really interesting, and I think a lot of people can see maybe that's happened with them or with a family member or something like that, and they can relate to. That's
very true. Since him and I started doing this, I get a lot of phone. I have 3 sisters, and out of the 3 of them, 2 of them are probably empaths. One of them has such huge instinct.
Just so you know, that's a whole episode by itself.
Friends, part of the family, like I said, I have people coming back on, and I'm going to add this, and I'm going to read Zach's comment because I think it really adds to what we're talking about. But Jimmy and I started talking. We're in the same podcast promotion group, and somebody had asked, tell about your podcast. So I put a bit, and actually lots of people were really interested. You and I started talking. I will tell you, Jim, first thing Jimmy says to me, or do you go by Bo or do you go by Jimmy?
I can go by Bo. I can go by Jimmy. It's either.
And Jim, so the people don't get mixed up, if that's okay.
That's
first question he asked me, Jim, is it okay if my dad comes? And yeah, why not? Like both of you are on a podcast together, of course. I'm gonna add here, Zach Man says my mother has been an RN for 40 years, and he lives in Arizona too, like I said, by the way.
Right on.
She knows my ailments before I know what they are. He says, I definitely agree that nurses have a sixth sense. I think that comes with being a mom too.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And I had, if it wasn't for the nurses, now mind you, I was in and out of the hospital for about 3 months. On top of the heart issue, I did have kidney cancer. So I had a partial nephrectomy, I think is what it's called, on my left kidney. So I have half of the left kidney. That was by accident. So basically the tooth found everything that was ailing me my entire life.
Don't you have a heart murmur too? Or did?
I'm sure I had a lot of stuff.
Say is we don't normally talk about all these medical issues when we're going to talk about the paranormal, but it was important to start with that because it just shows people think there's coincidences in life. I have to tell you, Jim, that's not a coincidence. All those things. There was far too many things. All fell into one. You're meant to be here. And what legacy you're creating. But I know Jimmy or Bo, you had mentioned you guys have had a lot of paranormal activity all around you your whole life. Like what are some of the other things and that's not to negate what you've been through. That is huge.
No. You want to tell yours?
Yeah. So just to kind of go off of what he was saying also, and actually what you just said about coincidences. Mm-hmm. So we eventually moved back to California. We're living in California now for, I don't even think we were here a full year when we were living in the house. And I actually told this story on one of our previous episodes. But we had a toy that was sitting on top of my TV in my room. At this time, that toy was a giraffe from Madagascar 2. Okay. And in that movie, the giraffe plays a witch doctor. And he's a very big germ freak. So he's always telling people, you look really sick. You should go see a doctor.
That was David's character, wasn't it?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So that phrase is on that toy. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I had it on top of my TV, which was my youngest brother's toy at the time. And I remember laying in bed one night, and like he had just mentioned, he was feeling much better. He was doing better. He was looking good, not feeling sick at all. And then out of nowhere, this toy just starts speaking. You look really sick. You should go see a doctor. But it said the same phrase over and over and over for at least 3, maybe 4 minutes. You look really sick. So finally, I got tired of it and freaked me the hell out. I threw it out of my room and threw it into the front room. And about, I'd say, less than a week later, he was back in the hospital with his heart issue.
Yeah, my device is a battery. My ICD implant is a battery. Well, I didn't realize at the time, and I don't recall any of the doctors telling me, hey, you have a 5 to 6 year expectancy on this first device. So if you hear anything, well, I didn't hear anything until this particular night, like he's referring to. There's a giraffe.
Oh, I'll let Del tell this story. There's a reason why he grabbed it, but I'll let him tell you when you're.
Okay. So I'm laying down, and mind you, I'm laying down, and I hear the beep. I hear a beep coming out of my right side. So I'm looking, I'm thinking I'm laying on my cell phone or something. I'm like, what the hell is that beep? And then I hear a vibrate. There's a beep and then a vibrate. I'm like, what the hell is that? And then all of a sudden I feel this tingling sensation on my device is right here. I don't know if you could see right here. And I felt it. I was like, what the hell's happening? So I had to look. I went and got my book, my Boston Scientific book. I'm looking at it, and basically what happened was the battery ran out, and I had 36 hours to get it replaced.
36 hours.
Yeah.
Freaking insane.
Positive spirit around you I want to talk to you about, but I want Del to share this story because we don't have the crazy activity we had. Like Del's been thrown 15 feet across our kitchen in our old house. It is crazy, but I'll let him tell you what happened. He grabbed this for a reason. So you go ahead, Del.
Yeah, no, when he mentioned a toy, that was then all of a sudden like, oh, I know it's underneath the dog toys that are over there, but we just had moved. We had a crazy experience that happened at the last house that we were at, and we moved into this new place where we are right now. And this is really weird is that where I am right now, I'm sitting here on the couch looking here, and this is, I thought about the toy, and Laura was sitting just across from me on the other side there. And as I got up to go and let the dog in from the screen door, I noticed down the hallway that points to the front door, this little toy with these little flimsy legs standing up in the middle of the floor. And
Shut up.
As it's standing up, it goes like this, and it goes, and it falls over, right? It just falls. It just boom, falls over. And I go to her, I go, did you just see that?
And I go, the boy that just stood up and took, it can't stand up on its own. Like we literally finished each other.
And I go like this is, and then I told like my mom about this. And my mom's really religious and stuff like that, and she's like, "Oh, that was all just made up in your head, blah blah blah." And then other people says, "Oh, that wasn't there." It says, "No, this thing with the flimsy little legs like this stood up with 3 legs because the dog bit off one of the legs, stood up and fell over on the floor." And I was watching this and went, wow. It says that doesn't happen because it's not fake. There was no animal there. The dog was laying on the floor over here. It was that, and the cat. We have a cat. The cat didn't grab this and throw this down there. It's like, and we both saw this and went, wow. Did something that we happened at the other place there maybe come around? I call what we have around here gremlins. They play little tricks over here. They move our keys, they move wires, they move little things. And
he comes in last night. I want to give a shout out to Shady D. She's another one of our regular watchers. Welcome, Shady D. You're just joining us. This is Bo or Jimmy and Big Jim Salinas. They have a podcast called Bo Talks with Big Jim. Well, I'm having them on here. They're sharing their paranormal experiences and about their podcast. But so Del comes in just before we went live for our host paranormal check. Goes, did you take my charger? And I said, I don't touch anything of yours. I said, plus I was cleaning. I said, check in the couch. Maybe I tucked it into the couch so the vacuum didn't get it, because we have one of those robo vacs, because I have a vac, so I can understand. I've been off on for a long time myself, not with the same issues. So he's looking. He tells me he ends up finding it in the box that his iPhone 12 came from. He never put it in there, right, Del? And we have an extra.
Hold on. Inside of the box?
Yeah, I'll show you the cable here too. And this is weird because if anybody's familiar with iPhone 12s, they don't come with a charger. You have to get an extra little clip like this.
Yeah.
And my cord was wrapped up like this, inside and twisted, because I pulled this out because I have my iPhone out now. This is just today with the charger piece like this. I don't know how to turn it with the camera. I'm not sure if it's reversed, but with this little clip, because these are the new clips with the iPhone 12s, you have to use the cords inside the box underneath my TV downstairs in the basement. And I'm upstairs right now on the main floor, and this is down there. And I'm going, why would I do this? Because this cable is the only cable that charges the phone, and I have to go and plug this into the computer to download and back up my stuff. Why would this be gone?
Okay, out of both of you, who has the attachment?
She has her own, but
I'll explain. I'll let him finish it. I'll explain it. Go ahead, Del.
But we both have the exact same phones. We got it. She has hers upstairs. I asked her about hers, and it says, "Where's mine?" I asked her, says, "Did you just take my cable to plug in your phone?" And no. And then she showed me hers, and then I'm looking around, and I find this downstairs in the basement in my iPhone 12 box, wrapped up nice and neatly with the connector piece in the center.
Okay, so you asked about the attachment.
Yes.
I haven't had a chance to tell Jimmy our story. I did share it with them. Now, we didn't have any say what went into the episode. They interviewed us for 6 hours, so everything we said was true. But they spliced together so many pieces of the interview, or including the reenactments. One of the psychics that actually commented on our episode, or intuitives, I guess, she's on our network now. We know her quite well. Actually, she was just on with us. We didn't know her at the time. So how this all started, I started doing angel cards when I was married to my first husband. This is about 15, 16 years ago. Okay, got certified. I only wanted to do angel cards because they were positive, gave loving messages. So we had just watched The Secret around that time, the movie when it came out, right?
Right.
And
wow.
for a long time. I have a serious work-related back injury, and I can't go back to work. I was actually in bed for almost 20 years. But when I could get up, I would go around our city, where it's about 100,000 people, and I love to be creative. So I was making dog accessories and stuff and jewelry. And I remember saying to my first husband at the time, I can't believe this. I said, like, everywhere I go, people want to sell my merchandise for me. They don't want a commission. They don't want anything. And he said, well, maybe it's the secret. Like, it's the law of attraction. I kid you not. I almost said a curse word. I kid you not. About 2 nights later, I have this dream, and this dream is like it happened 15 minutes ago. There was a tree in my old at my old house in the front yard, and I'm out in the front yard. There's a man sitting in my tree, and I've got a high, fashion kind. I'm just not a high maintenance type of person, but you could tell, very expensive pinstriped gray charcoal suit. As I look up, white, very silk slush. Then at this sickly white skin you could see, but very neatly, all in one piece, trimmed, black mustache and goatee, black slick back hair to here, except his eyes. His eyes went from black to flame. And he goes, "Hello, Lorilei," very snarky, right?
Oh, hell no.
He goes, "You know that little business that you have? That's nothing." He said, "I can give you wealth. I can give you fame. I can give you your wildest dreams. All you have to do is follow me." And I remember saying to him, "Who the F are you?"
Right.
And absolutely under no circumstances. And I'm screaming, and I'm being very radio friendly because I was not friendly in that dream. Okay. And then he told me his name. told me he was a demon, told me the spelling of his name, and we'll get to the rest of the story. I'm getting goosebumps telling you. Now, I was raised Roman Catholic. I knew about fallen angels and many books on fallen angels. I never seen this name, never heard this name. I don't repeat it. I'm not afraid. I just give it energy, okay? And again, I said in no uncertain terms, that's not radio friendly, to leave me the F alone and get the F out of my tree in my yard. And this is what he did. Oh, no, 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 he said. Every time you see a crow or a raven, you'll know who it is. And all hell broke loose in our house. My first marriage ended. Del and I have known each other our whole lives. We're kind of a second generation of a family. It's a family by marriage only, not by blood. And so his mom was getting his degree as a nurse when I was like, I've known him since he was born practically. So we were friends and we got together, and he moved into the home, and that's when all heck broke loose. But fast forward about 10 years, and I'm like, this is a full-time job, 12 to 18 hours a day, researching, trying to find out. I always say I never went looking for the paranormal, it found us. What happened was, and the more I say I don't want to work with dark things, the more they come. I have had people possessed, I kid you not, levitating on camera. I have seen things that I would never in a million years think I have seen. And the more I keep saying, I don't want to work with this, it keeps coming. So I was doing some research for somebody that had had a dream and asked me about a name they'd been given. And I said, I'm not an expert. I'll take a look for you. They're on the same page 10 years later, exact name, exact spelling, and exact animal form I had been given was the name of this demon. Now, where would I get this name if it wasn't a dream? So as far as I know, we don't have an attachment, but through my research and experience, once these things know who you are and what you are and where you are, they don't forget you. They don't try and stop, and they try and tear everything apart in your life. Financial, health, things you can't control. And, as human beings, you get people that are very, very brave. I've had people say, well, you just send that to my house and I'll kick its butt. They don't understand that they don't take commands from humans, and they go after things you can't control. So yeah, there's nothing really nefarious. It's a little bothersome, but as it's always been showed to me by spirit, on the other side, names aren't important. Everybody knows each other by energy signature, okay? They agree if you're going to work with a guide, or you hear your guides, or say you work with higher beings, whatever it may be, they'll agree for the name that you give them as long as they know that you're going to know them by that name. But they've shown me that as humanity on the other side, we're all little pinpricks of light. But people that have gifts, like you mentioned, your sisters that are aware of being empaths or what have you, that looks like a bonfire. But we live in a world of duality on this earth, right? So it's not just good. We get good and bad. We get light and dark. We get hot and cold. So it's not just angels and higher beings that can see you. It's negative beings as well.
Yeah, right.
Effectively what the energy is on this planet. And I'm not getting all woo-woo. I'm going into science here. One of the laws of science is, right, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can be transferred from one place to another. We are energy. Everything on this planet is energy, our words, our thoughts, our emotions. So it was a long answer, but I don't believe that we have an attachment. Del has gifts, both sons have gifts. But again, it's like a bonfire, right? Like, right. Why did I have this thing come to me to tempt me? And I ended up, how it ended in the dream was I called on Archangel Michael. And I'm not super, super religious. I don't subscribe to any particular religion. I consider myself highly spiritual, as does Del, and believe in God for our higher power. But I called on Archangel Michael. There was this brilliant flash of royal blue, silver, and white. I woke up in a sweat, crying and shaking, and I'm not a crier. And that's when I broke loose. So it knows who we are. Would it like us? I've been told many times that the ultimate product would be my son with autism, because he's so innocent, being, autistic, and we're in the way.
Yeah. And my mother, his grandmother, feels the same way. Unfortunately, Jim, I don't know if you know about it. He's type 1 diabetic.
No, I didn't.
And he's type 1. He was diagnosed at 7. And his younger brother, my younger son, is type 1 diabetic as well. And it doesn't run in our family at all. any part, but maternal or paternal. And, my mother's side, the maternal side of the family, they believe they have, well, it's not necessarily practicing Santeria or Brujeria, but it's definitely some sort of satanic.
It's something, whatever
It's
it is,
something.
it's something.
But it's definitely
can't
something
explain it.
my grandfather has, or that I'm told that he had dabbled in. And my mom really believes that there is a family curse, or say, that is why my boys are sick.
Okay, that's an interesting question, because that's what I wanted to ask you, Bo and Jim there. And there is that since you've become public and doing your show there, has people in your family come out to you, or both of yous, and said like, hey, we've had similar occurrences or something?
Oh yeah.
For me, I'm sorry, you want to go?
No, go ahead.
Oh, for me, my eldest sister, I'm the oldest of the four, but my first sister, we've always talked about this like two little kids. It was her, my mother, and myself growing up. My parents divorced when I was 5. They're still in the family. I mean, I still in contact with my dad. He has another family. Everything's great step parents, the whole 9 yards. But as we were growing up, we always talked about something that's followed her. That's been since she was about 8 years old. And since we started doing this podcast, absolutely, I've had nephews, I've had cousins, I've had other family members,
friends of people,
friends of it. Instead of talking to me like, "Hey, you remember that story when we were kids?" It's more like I listen to your guys' show, and they'll add to it. Recently went and visited my sister, and she told me a story about something that happened when we were younger, and it was something that she had remembered just by us telling our paranormal and supernatural type experiences and stuff that we went through. She's like, "Oh, do you remember the old lady that lived next to us in Oakland?" And at the time, we lived upstairs from a department store. It was a standalone department store. And we lived upstairs. We were divided by a rooftop, and there was another restaurant with another apartment on top. Mm-hmm. Try to make a really long story short. Well, there was a couple that lived there, an elderly couple. The husband was an alcoholic. He ended up dying outside on the street, real busy street. The wife was left alone. She was elderly, and she ended up getting locked in her kitchen.
Oh, wow.
So the summer had passed. The owner of the facility hired a bunch of neighborhood people to come and clean out this house, and it was a big 6-bedroom upstairs of this. It was a long 6-bedroom area, and she had everything. They probably lived there 40, 50 years. So everything they accumulated was in the house still. Mm-hmm. Well, we ended up going to the kitchen. The kitchen was locked from the outside. My uncle and one of the neighborhood kids kicked in the door, and the lady, unfortunately, was in there. She had gotten eaten up by the rodents, and she totally, decayed, and she basically dissipated. All that was there was hair and bone. Well, I went to talk to my sister, and she said, "Do you remember the time when we were..." Now, her kitchen window and our bedroom window were across from each other, and these were big 604. They're basically 6 foot by 4 foot windows.
Yeah.
And so she's like, "Do you remember when that lady was missing?" And I said, "Yeah, I remember. I was just talking to Jim about this on the podcast." Well, she's like, "I don't know if when I seen her waving at us, if she had already died or she was trying to get our attention, that she was locked in the room." So that's bothered my sister since she was 10 years old. She's now 40. I'm 51. She's 48.
And how sad nobody was looking for, like you were looking, but nobody thought to go in there. And again, that this brought this up for your sister. She's been carrying this all this time. Mm-hmm. And when you talk to more people in the paranormal, I find most of us have had experiences since we've been very young, or youngest memories. I had one when I was 8. Mm-hmm. From the time the snow melted until it fell, every night at 3:00 in the morning, I would wake up completely blue, unable to breathe. There was no 911 at that time. I remember scooping me up. As soon as he got me away from the house, I'd be able to breathe. They never found out what was wrong. Said it was asthma. I was afraid to go away because I knew it was going to happen. I don't remember anything, even from 4 years of age. And then talking with Del, he's had experiences since he's been very, very young. Now, what about you guys? Like, besides what your sister experienced, how about you, Bo? What have you had stuff around you that you've realized now looking back?
Oh yeah. It's kind of odd, honestly, because the ghost stuff I never really even thought about. I really didn't think about until we started doing this. And I remember back in Arizona, because that's to me that's home. Home for Big Jim, for my dad, is here back in California. Home for me is back in Arizona. So back home, we were living in a townhouse, and I couldn't tell you what time of night, but at night, I mean, they always say it in television, they always say it in movies and stuff. There's a dark that's darker than dark. And a lot of the times I'd see something standing in the doorway. I don't know what it was. I don't know how to explain it, but something was there, but it was darker than what the rest of the room was. And I always felt super uncomfortable. It's weird. But that's my experiences as a child. I never really experienced anything really until coming back to California. Back home, we'd always hear, "Oh, don't go to your aunt's house. If you get in trouble, we're going to send you to your aunt's house. There's something with her." And I always thought it was a joke. I always thought people were just being silly and just trying to play pranks on us kids. And I remember we had, again, just moved back, and we're all staying the night at my aunt's house. My youngest brother, Javen, was very young, very small at the time, so he was able to sleep between my legs. Him and I were sleeping on one couch. And what ended up happening is I'm laying on this end, so this would be the left side. He was sleeping on the right, and I distinctly heard footsteps coming down my aunt's hallway. Now, if anyone who knows us and knows this hallway, that is by far one of the scariest hallways you'll ever be. And it's not a huge, long, ominous hallway, but it is ominous for sure. Mm-hmm. And I hear on wood, on hardwood, footsteps coming down the hall. Everyone's asleep. It's probably 2 a.m, 3 a.m. My mom and him are on the floor sleeping. My other brother is on the other couch. There's several other people because we just all had a party. Excuse me. And then I hear these footsteps, and I remember waking up and thinking, okay, someone's up. They're probably going to go to the bathroom. The restroom's right there. And then I hear glass moving.
Breaking?
No, I hear glass dishes.
Oh, dishes. Okay, gotcha. Glass
dishes moving. And I'm like, okay, so not to be silly and funny, but my mother is a late night snacker. Mm-hmm. She will wake up in the middle of the night, eat cereal with her eyes closed, and then go back to bed. Love you, Mom. Love you to death.
Hey, it happens.
So I immediately thought, okay, maybe it's my mom eating a snack. And I happen to glance over, and there's just enough light from the outside to where I could see his head and my mom laying next to him. And mind you, I didn't hear any doors opening. I didn't hear any doors closing. And people are not people, but I still hear those dishes. Mm-hmm. And by this time, I'm probably maybe 18 years old, 19 years old. And I'm like, okay, this is this what my family's been telling me about this whole time? And then I hear it moving, and then but heavy walking, almost like a guy, like a large man is walking down the hallway. But again, no doors closing, no doors opening, no lights. Yeah, nothing.
Nothing. That is creepy. I do have a question for you guys and a comment. So, I'll do the comment first. So Shady D says what she believes what you show was darker than dark to me is an absence of being. You do not want to get near that. I've seen it and it's terrifying. I have pictures of that from my old house. Believe me, you just know instinctively. And then Zach wanted to know, what part of Arizona did you gentlemen live at? He said.
We first moved into Glendale, 59th and Northern, and then we ended up, I bought my first house over on 32nd and Peoria. So Peoria and Phoenix and Glendale is where we live.
Yeah.
Del, did you have any questions at all? I don't want to leave you out here.
It's just one thing that I've been noticing a lot. There was talking with my neighbors and stuff like that, and I'm part Aboriginal, Métis, and stuff like that. But looking at a lot of stuff that deals with the native culture and stuff like that they deal with a lot of spirits and stuff like that. And you guys are down in Arizona, and
You're in California now.
I know, but in Arizona, when some of this stuff is happening, and if you go back into history, and this is a lot of things that I go into, is a lot of history in that is about some native tribes dealing with dark magic and stuff like that, skinwalkers, weird witchy stuff you call. Would you assess any of the stuff there that might be something that was around the area that attached itself to you guys?
Yeah, I got a funny story. My brother and I, we were working out towards Scottsdale, and there's a bunch of reservations out that way. And one of them, particular, there's a back way into the reservation. And at the time, like I said, I had just bought my first house, and I wanted to make a barrier in front. So we go to get gas. I noticed the fence was down. I'm like, hey brother, we're gonna go over there. We're gonna get these big rocks, and they're probably like 100-pound boulders. Mm-hmm. And he's like, that's native ground. I'm like, yeah, I know. What about it? He's like, okay, whatever you want to do. So long story short, as of about a year ago, he's like, you know what, Effer? He called me Effer. He's like, I bet you got cursed from stealing them rocks from that tribal, from the Indian. And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what, dude? You're probably right. Because I did it probably 2 days in a row. And these rocks, if I had to buy them, they were probably $100 boulders. Easy.
And not only that, you had like 50 of them.
Yeah, I use them.
I'm laughing because what happens, I get a lot of people contacting me. It's usually a male that is a bit of a loner, really wants to fit in, and is watching paranormal shows. Particularly a gentleman that wears tight t-shirts and everything is a demon. I won't say their name. And so they go to a lot of the famous places that they see them investigate, and very foolishly take something from there, and they bring it home. And then it reeks home, and they've got a big problem, and they don't know what to do with it. So I don't know, Del, what's your thoughts? Because I've heard many things about this with taking something from, even though you didn't take it, you paid for it, like you said, but still the energy doesn't go away. What do you think, Del?
Oh no, I stole it. I stole it.
He took it.
I stole it. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, thank you, but I did steal them. At the time, I didn't believe in that. Oh, you remove something from sacred ground, it will follow you. I didn't believe in that type of stuff.
Now, I look at this in a different way, right? Because I look at things way different than Lord does and stuff like that. It says, did you take it or did you use it for another purpose that could be beneficial? And that's the thing is that person that placed it there, did they steal that from something else that could have been something beneficial to another purpose, right? So you have to go and wonder about that, things about attachments in there and what people put ownership onto, right? Because if I'm taking this, it could be beneficial to something else. Could this be beneficial to further?
Go ahead, folks. You're dying.
The only thing that those rocks benefited us, other than lining our driveway, was also holding heat for the rock for the fire pit that he built us.
Yeah,
awesome.
So
beneficial.
It's very beneficial, but at the same time, if something was brought through there, what's it to say that maybe heat woke it up?
Ooh. You never know.
That's true though. But the thing is though is that even the rock that was placed there, right? This is the whole thing. This works into a lot of mysticism when ownership gets put onto objects, right? And the thing is though is that you have to look at the whole timeline of the object and what it is. If me taking in an object that's benefiting me for my timeline in this reality that I have, is that negative to something that doesn't exist anymore or something that laid claim to it? But how did they lay claim to an object that wasn't theirs to lay claim to in the first place? This is a whole
I
mix and match of
I hear what you're saying. Okay, that yes, but I think first of all, that came from nature. That was on that land. It's sacred land, but also the fact that you use some very operative words. Me benefiting, I for my purpose, rather than, you know what I'm saying? It's more of an egocentric type of purpose than benefiting, a lot. I don't know, what's your thoughts now that we're having this discussion? I'm going to read a few comments. Zach puts it.
It was solely out of greed and selfishness. I'm not going to lie.
There you go.
I took the gate being down. I didn't have to run out of gas at that gas station. I could have went further. And then I looked and saw the gate that was down, and there was a bunch of rocks, and they were very attractive.
Well, here's the question though, right? Okay, so besides it being behind a gate or being on a piece of land, what if you were walking on the street and you saw a can and you took that can home and you put it there and you put it beside your fire pit? Now, is that can more significant than that rock that was behind a fence? If you would have came from the other way, it would have been on the same side of the fence from you, right? You understand?
Yeah.
You're looking at direction and...
Yep. No, I get what you're saying, but go ahead.
That though, again, was that can there because you were meant to take it? I agree. Or was it there for purpose? Maybe not everything's what it appears. Something. I'm working on a case right now locally here, and I'll keep it very generic. There is somebody here through another friend that contacted me, and there's a river that runs behind his house, and there was a mason jar floating in the river. And he went, what the heck is this mason jar? And he fishes it out. And I guess he was thinking, thank God he was, to film it. Maybe there was something illegal in it, I'm guessing. Because why else would you film it, right?
Right.
As he starts to open the jar, and my skin is starting to crawl. We can say something, Jim?
I was just going to say, why would you open it? Just let it float.
I know. Knowing what you know, though, he didn't know these.
You always want to find out what's inside.
Yeah, as humans, we're very curious, right?
Hear what was in it. He pulls it out, and it's in this ratty old black burlap cloth. He's unwrapping. Pulls out. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps. An arrowhead.
Nope.
Then pulls out bones. Then there was some hair and some pins and a whole bunch of stuff.
You just made my stomach turn.
I got goosebumps on goosebumps. So he filmed it, thank God. And we saw what he had done. He wasn't happy, I guess, that his buddy had shared this with us, but his buddy knows what goes on with the paranormal and concerned. And I have a friend that I co-host tomorrow night with, and she collects haunted items. She's an occult historian. Very, very strangely, I saw the video. Before I opened it, I heard, you really shouldn't watch this. So I made sure I had a lot of protection. She, who collects haunted items, after we talked about it, I sent it to her. She goes, I heard the same thing. So I said, what did you do with it? Back in the river. Now, the problem is, if you understand a little bit about magic, and again, doesn't mean it's true, but the person that put that in that lake did that to get rid of whatever they believed they were getting rid of, right? But the thing is, they didn't secure it very well because somebody else found that. Now, because of whatever was open there, that goes back to them times 3, at least, right? Same thing with this gentleman, not believing in this, throwing it back in the river if somebody else finds it. Now, again, sounds crazy, right? But you even get down to... Okay, go ahead. I know you were going to say something. Go ahead.
No, it doesn't sound crazy. As a matter of fact, it sounds exactly like the story him and I just did that's going to be released this coming Wednesday.
Tell us, people are going to have to tune in, but okay.
Yeah, no, I could definitely give you... No, it's these people, they bought a home and they went to go dig a pool and they ended up finding...
Poltergeist.
That's exactly what it was.
Exactly, yeah. They found coffins in their backyard. So, and then they were like, you know what? We don't want to disturb you. Let's rebury you after we just dug you up.
Uh-oh.
So it's the exact same concept of your friend finding a jar, opening it up, looking and going, "Oh, this is creepy." Throw it back in the.
Yes. None of my, I hope, would do something like that because most of my friends are within this field. But when we do something innocently, not like you did with the rocks, right? You said, Big Jim, you didn't know about this kind of stuff, nor did you believe in it. So you thought, hey, what the heck?
You know, I come from this a different way, right? It says that we don't know what our timeline is, and we don't know what the structure is, and what has happened. If we've been there's been we're in the fourth or fifth cycle of something going on, that a rock is actually a gravestone, or it could have been a part of a foundation house.
True.
It could have been a toy for a giant or something like that put it on there, right? We don't know these things. Period. We sort of have all these sort of speculations that we want to believe our timeline is over a certain period of time. So now you look about, how does attachment work with something that's out there that somebody else would think that was nothing, but it might have been important to somebody 1,000 or 2,000 years ago? How would you know that? And the same thing with burial grounds is that because North America is actually a pretty new area for Europeans coming in there. It doesn't mean that the rest of the native tribes hadn't been here for thousand years beforehand, and might have put markers that people didn't recognize and have taken them and moved them. So there's a whole big, huge concept in history and what things of importance actually sort of mean. And I don't know, it's weird.
A lot of people that didn't even know about this, but all of a sudden all holy hell breaks loose when they pick up something maybe they found. I'm going to share a story in here someone shared actually in the comments, for example, not knowing anything about the paranormal. So I hear what you're saying, but I'm saying there has to be something to this because, you know, even if you didn't believe in it or didn't know about it, you do find out about it when something starts happening, like you get poltergeist activity or you get something really negative, or it sounds like you've had some really positive paranormal experiences as well. Just hold that thought for a sec. I wanted to go back a little bit. Zachman says, I used to own a cigar lounge when he had asked about where you guys lived. In downtown Glendale on 57th Drive and Grand Avenue at Desert Rose Gastropub. Yep. And it was really cool, that place. Used to go live from there. You're smart.
Well, we know downtown Glendale Glitters is where they have a festival every Christmas.
I've known him for a long time from a fellow friend. He's got paranormal Jason Bland. It streams live on Sunday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern and goes for 3 hours on YouTube and Facebook. So if you guys check it out, he's got he made the top 50 for podcasts. And I think Rush Limbaugh was number 1 in the top 30. He's got a great podcast.
Wow.
So I know Zach for quite a few years. So she says, someone gave me an amethyst that had been stolen from a mine. We have amethyst mines all around us, actually. Mm-hmm. And she said it gave nothing but grief for everyone that touched it. And the person I gave it to ended up burning their house to the ground. And she said, no, nothing more than grief. She goes, it was like someone stole a baby from Mother Earth and she was pissed off. Now, again, I know Dell, being the skeptic, will say, well, we can't prove that the amethyst burnt the house down, but it sounds like whatever it was, and even somebody's belief that it could cause something negative can cause that to manifest. I mean, we see that with tulpas, right? Like, you know, certain areas where everybody believes, like, say, I'm going to use Slender Man. That was a story on Creepypasta that people started, it went viral, and now we're pictures, we're getting video, we're getting experiences. So just talking about something in a belief, because that's what we live on as Earth, is manifestation, right? Everything we have here that didn't come from your higher power, whatever your belief is, nature, somebody thought it up and created it.
Well, go ahead. I know Dale wants to say something because I got a question to ask you in regards to science and paranormal. Well, go ahead.
Go ahead, Deli.
Well, no, it says, okay, no, what's your question?
Okay, like I was saying, when I was in the hospital, I was under a lot of medication. I still take beta blockers. I still take medication. So I kind of, as growing into this, it kind of makes me aware of, okay, now I got to think about both sides, skeptic or believer. Okay, so taking the medication, I can understand maybe being under the influence and possibly seeing a shadow figure or a gray or a slender man, some sort of an apparition. Okay. So talking about the negative energy of stealing a child from Mother Earth, I get that. I understand where you're coming from, but I also understand where Dell's beliefs are.
That was Shady D that said that. That wasn't me. That was her comment.
Oh, okay. Miss Shady D. I understand what you're talking, but from being under the influence of medication and then now knowing what I know as I've gotten older, there's a line where I don't know if it's what to believe anymore because I know I've hallucinated enough. So that's my cognitives and that's my subconscious. But I also know that there have been things that I cannot explain while I wasn't under the influence. So it kind of goes both ways. I've had you're just a little too loaded or you drank too much whiskey, pal, or, your eyes are playing tricks on you, maybe, or it is real. And I do have another story for you later. So
comment to that. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in the medical field, for example, they're going back to controlled dosages of LSD, psilocybins, or DMT, or what. They're finding that they're making progress with mental health treatment, PTSD, and things like that within a week or two under a controlled dose in a controlled setting, whereas therapy, if it might even work, and medication may take years and years. So my point is, when we're under the influence, and we all have been here, I'm sure, probably. I know I have. I know Del, I like to have a good drink every now and then. You didn't want to see us here on the air on New Year's Eve. It was quite.
You didn't want to see us on New Year's.
But the thing is what I'm saying. Does it maybe really remove those barriers that we have, that logical monkey mind, if you will, that we think controls our whole process in life, is kind of steps out of the way, and we're more open, and those shields aren't in the way. Those things were always there. We just would have said, nope, that's not there. It's a trick of my eyes. No, that's my imagination. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I'm stubborn by nature. I'm a Mexican. You guys call them gremlins. I call us Mexicans. But
don't go there. No,
just kidding.
But the point I want to make there, back to what Big Jim said, when you took those rocks, this is what I'm saying there, right? Is that you have to figure is that nobody has claim to anything that is of the earth, right? So if you go and think that somebody that put a claim there that this stone is because of something, and if it's going to be a benefit to you, that's what I was trying to make, benefit or positive to you or being used for something. Nothing, no entity, no energy has claim over that. You have equal claim over everything. And you know what? And if you have a negative effect of something that's out of there, maybe there might be some sort of thing that you have to go and deal with, say like, hey, it's just as much as mine is yours, and you don't own that. And maybe that's the whole thing of getting that equalization in spirit and cleansing with spirituality.
Well, I can honestly say that it did add a lot of curb appeal to my house by lining the front of my grass with the river rock, and I was able to build one hell of a bonfire every Sunday. And,
that was a great bonfire.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get what you're saying. I'm trying to make a joke of it, but you're right. I used it for something that I thought would have been beneficial to me, my home. And
I'll tell you one thing, though, is that Laura knows this too, is that Dell didn't start the fire, but it's always been burning. I build the biggest fires out at my camp and out at Oliver Lake, and the biggest bonfires, period, and I attract everything.
I'd love to see one of those. Uh-oh.
Oh, Laura's coming downstairs to the cave with me.
Oh, okay.
You just lost your thing, so let me just move her space in the cave couch.
Yeah, no problem.
No, you know what it is, guys. With all the people, we're on such major lockdown here. I'll squish over that. We haven't got enough bandwidth. I got to call and get another stronger feed. It's been going on for the last 3 weeks. Everything went black. I could hear you guys, And then all of a sudden there was nothing. So I thought, Del and I are going to be interview buddies.
So now
No such thing
you're
as
on the
coincidences, huh?
show.
No, you're not.
Take it away, Mr. Dell.
I've been circumvented this show now. Now it's the delicious
I'm
recipe.
just going to go like this. We don't usually do this. This is special, you guys. We only had to do this, last week on Friday?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So anyways, out of this whole part there, so we've talked about the spiritual aspect that you've both experienced. What else have you experienced during your show over all the episodes that you've been putting out there?
Okay, I could take. Let me go ahead and lead on this one.
Okay.
I believe we could share our screen. Yeah.
I don't know if you can, Jimmy, because we've tried it with StreamYard. I don't know if it'll let you. Try it and see.
Okay.
If you want to show something, send it to me, please, and I'll send it to Joe because he can probably put it up for us.
Absolutely. So, like I just mentioned, our last episode that we had just recorded, we had a story of a cemetery, and it involves ghosts and the whole nine. And then towards the end of it, what ends up happening is we're talking. Big Jim's my dad's asking me, what ended up happening with the rest of the people that were involved, XYZ. And I said, well, they ended up losing stuff. And as he's restating what I had just said, something flies out of the right side of his neck.
Oh my gosh.
And I wish I was joking. I wish it was a bug. I wish it was a lot of different things. But I have it. I just got to find it again. But yes, very recently, before that, we had my cousin, his nephew, his best man to his wedding. He came on and he told us his ghost story about seeing a bluish greenish orb. Was it an orb or was it
It was an apparition. It was like a figure, I guess, if you want to call it.
But he remembers as a kid looking underneath his door and seeing this bluish green mist orb float down his hallway. Freaked him out.
And this is going on in California?
That was going on in California. Yeah, that was in Palmdale when he was younger.
And California has a big, huge areas of military bases that have been dealing with extraterrestrials too, eh?
Oh, yeah.
So is Arizona.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
you know what? Actually, Joe runs the International Center for Alien Research, who you met. That's our producer. I should give him a shout out. I forgot to. I want to thank Joe Caldo. He owns UPRN, and he does all the hard work for us. He does all the producing. So thanks, Joe. He has many shows too. Monday nights, Wednesday nights. He has UFO Paranormal, I think it is, or UFO Undercover.
Yeah.
UFO Undercover. Then he has the Gray Zone Uncensored. Thank you, Del. And then we do the Centralist. It's political host chat on Friday night. So he's quite busy with that. But he's been doing a 20-plus year study on the addition of the genetic profile that causes Rh negative blood, green eyes, and red hair, because that didn't exist in the human genome up to 20,000 years ago. So he's a pretty fascinating guy to talk about that kind of stuff too.
Wait, really?
That's it. Yeah, that's that it didn't exist.
Didn't exist. Nope. So they're trying.
Where the hell they come from?
Pardon?
Where'd they all come from? There's a lot of people with red hair. I'm part Irish. That's in my blood.
Well, this is a part of the conspiracy thing, and is that there's been some sort of alien or dimensional being come in manipulation that's happened in the genome, and it's the whole thing. It goes into the whole timeline. Is you believe that everybody sort of came out of Africa and populated the world, but that's actually not even true because other cultures are actually older than the ones that came out of Africa. So you have to.
Or I had Paul Anthony Wallace. Joe's been on Ancient Aliens quite a bit too, but he's in Australia. He's been on Ancient Aliens. He runs 5D TV, and we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. Did the human race actually evolve from aliens? And he's written 2 books about it. And just from what he had discovered in studying many ancient texts, and again, like what Del was saying about how history's been changed, and many people that have had paranormal experiences, I'm finding too, have had some sort of ET experience. Have you guys found that as well too?
I personally, I've seen a couple things, you know, I especially out here in California, like you were saying, toward a naval base, but there was a place just south of me. I was driving in a big rig with a buddy of mine. We were working in San Diego. We were coming back north, and it was about just after midnight. And it was really like he said, there's dark and then there's darker. Well, it was really dark out, and I could see these three lights trailing us, and then right up next to us. And I didn't really want to look because alien type stuff. So I just kept looking straight, and the driver's name was Donnie. He's like, "Hey, do you see that?" And I'm like, "Oh, you can see that too, right?" And mind you, I'm the passenger, and he's able to see it out of my right side. I'm like, "You see that too?" He's like, "Yeah." And right when we said that, we both looked, and it just shot up, just right into nothing. So that's probably the only type of a extraterrestrial thing that I've ever seen that I would say that was probably extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
But other than that, no.
I'll see if this pops up and see if you see this is weird.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's blue-eyed Polynesians that are over there away from North America, away from Europe and stuff like that. But there's just north of Australia in Polynesia and going into the whole area there, tribes of dark-haired people with dark-haired stuff like that, with super blue eyes and also super jade-colored eyes too as well, which is not a natural trait in being humans. And so that there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures, and these are like before filters, right?
Yeah. So you know, like I said, you know what though, I always say,
here's another one if you see that.
I can't see it, there's too much light.
Blonde-haired black people.
Well, yeah.
Oh, I see that one. Yeah.
But you know what? I always say this, that the more I find out about, sorry, I'm moving the camera. The more I find out about this world, the more I feel smaller than a one-celled organism, because the vast amount of knowledge compared to what we consider to just be everyday, regular life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just evolution, science. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Like Rh negative blood, and anybody that's a woman that's been pregnant has gone for an Rh negative blood test because they have to check you for it. Like my mother is Rh negative. I also have an ET type experience. My mother doesn't believe in this kind of stuff, by the way. Red hair and green eyes, by the way, Jim or Bo.
Here's another one.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I've seen just stunning, or the green eyes.
But the face is right, very attractive face too, but the eyes are not a natural. That's not a dominant color eye thing that would ever be there, right?
Yeah.
And this is like if you want to go into genetics and all that stuff like that, it doesn't even matter that somebody might have snuck up and swam onto the island and injected a little bit of sperm in there, but there's a huge amount of population.
Rh negative blood. It came, like my mother is Rh negative, red hair and green eyes. Okay, so my brother is, I'm going to be 56. He'll be 55 in November coming up, right?
No, 50. What do you call me? 55?
My
next?
brother.
Oh, okay.
He knows my brother. He's younger than me. Like everybody knows he's younger than me. Knows my brother. Anyways, when my mother was pregnant, she didn't have a problem with me, but as with each subsequent baby, I guess there was no shot to counteract that. So my brother almost died, right? But that's why they check every pregnant woman for this nowadays, and it's about the 4th or 5th month of pregnancy, and it's called a ROGAM shot. So they give you that. Otherwise, it's oversimplification, but it's like the body recognizes the baby as an invader, and it attacks the baby, and it'll cause a woman to miscarry.
Right.
But where did that come from? Like, we never had that before. So it has to have come from somewhere.
It's called genetic GMO foods and stuff like that.
Yeah, back then, 20,000 years ago.
know what's going on there today, and I'm not going to get into this whole pandemic
Well,
stuff
Shady
there.
D says, I know someone who is O negative, 6'2", green eyes and red hair. He's also a Taurus. I don't know what that's
right.
supposed to
Well,
mean.
the thing is, though, that there is outliers out there. That's true. That you have, what do you call them, freaks of nature that sort of outdo the regular population. But when you have a whole culture of people that are different from everywhere else, and they have traits of eye color that is not
existent
in any other population, that seems like there has to be some sort of manipulation that sort of goes on.
There has to be something that.
Well, that's just
okay. We're getting away from the paranormal. But
Yeah, I could sit and listen to all this all day.
Yeah.
Is it an evolution or what?
Well,
is it?
just look at New Zealand. Have you guys ever looked at New Zealand and the Maori tribe and stuff like that, and the eye color that's there, and their body type that is different than everything else, and they were supposed to be a separate tribe from everywhere else? And
No.
It's interesting. Look into New Zealand Maori tribe and their.
Well, there are other interests. Is it so much history? It's true crime, right? You guys talk also.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Podcast, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I got a question for you.
Sure.
Okay.
Have you ever run across a true crime story, like just wait, that has a paranormal element? I can think of one, the Chris Watts story. What do you guys think of that? Now that is phenomenal. The police body camera footage. Have you guys seen that?
Oh, yeah.
Like the cops go in there with the police dog and they're looking in the girl's closet and you hear a little girl giggle. The dog heard it. The police cam picked it up. They're picking up the little girl behind the cop in there. You hear EPs and them saying, "This is our house." And the little girl's name is Cece. And she goes, I forgot I think the other little girl's name was Bella. And she goes, "Cece, come play with me." And it's Shanann, I think was the way you said her name. And two little girls, Bella and because it was Cece, and she was pregnant with her only boy, Nico. Her husband murdered all three of them and hid their bodies. Didn't tell the police they were missing, right? And then the police cam footage has picked up all this stuff, and it's out there. Like, so if you guys ever ran across a story about that, or what do you guys think about this story yourself?
I never heard of that. I never heard of any of that or the supernatural stuff, or the picking up any
EVPs?
Yeah, I didn't know about any of that. But yeah, I'll have to look it up. But no, the story itself, just that guy doing what he did in general. I mean, we had an episode of a guy named Marcus Wesson. Oh. And this guy, we won't get into it, but he just did some things to his family members, his daughters, his nieces, ended up having a cult following. Mm-hmm. People like that don't need to be on this earth. They don't.
And about the paranormal, like merging the two stories. Like when you look this up, Jim,
I'm going to
blow your mind. Neighbors have called the police. Hang on, I'll let you talk.
Go ahead.
That called because they've been seeing a woman in the window, and that there was somebody in the house. The house is supposed to be empty. There is all the police footage is out there going in there. There are things that the cameras picked up, like Shanann is actually in the mirror when the cops.
Oh hell.
Yeah, like you can see it. Like it is mind-blowing. I'm getting goosebumps again. The little girls, and you see it's a woman, older woman with canine going in the closet, and all of a sudden you hear like a little girl, and the dog goes, and she goes, "What was that?" She even steps on a squeaky toy thinking it's that. She goes, "Did you hear that?" And the other girl goes, "Yeah." They didn't know that the wife and the children were dead yet. They had thought they were missing. It picks up, I think they said they thought it was Cece standing behind the police officer in her, I guess, paranormal form. They never picked it up. The cameras did. That's why I was asking, have you guys ever merged these two things together? They're terrible stories.
No.
But it gives credence to the fact that we go on forever.
We haven't merged the two, but I'll even take it a step further with that same story. Mm-hmm. And I just saw this recently myself. And I'm sure some people may have seen it too. Lorilei, I'm sure you may have seen it. But also when it shows the officer talking to Chris, and he's in his neighbor's house, right? There's a preview on the TV, and me and Big Jim watch the show all of the time, but he's never seen the documentary on Netflix yet.
Yeah.
And on there, on that screen, before the neighbor pulls up his security footage camera, there is a picture of a fetus, and then on the fetus, it disappears into black oil, and then it goes to a ground, and then a skeleton. That's how he killed. That's where he ended up burying his wife and children.
Mm-hmm.
He dumped the kids into an oil well and then buried the wife outside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen or heard any of that.
Mm-hmm. But the thing
It's a trip.
Shows up like this and you don't pick up anything sad or anything maliceful or anything like that with the wife and the children. Like it's like they're back in their home, they're happy, they're like going on with life in spirit. There doesn't seem to be, like I said, any hate or anger or malice. It's just so odd that they have shown up in so many places around this home, or like you said, Bo, on the neighbor's television set. There's a really good channel I like to watch, and I reference quite often on this show, is particularly, and the one we co-host tomorrow night, Tripping the Void. And this YouTuber is called Nuke's Top 5. I don't know if you guys have ever seen him.
Nuke's Top 5, no.
He's in Norway. He has to be from North America from the accent. But the reason why I love him, he's a skeptic, and he gets videos sent to him from all over the world. And all he does is he puts them out there. Like in those, actually, he did cover something in the Watts family as well. But there was something people had thought that the little girl was playing in the bedroom while the neighbors.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah, he proves that it was actually the neighbor's little girl. But what he does is he shares everything, and the channel it's come from, and some of this stuff is crazy that comes in. And then he says, is it all an elaborate hoax? You decide. He never tells you what to think. But like the Middle East, he's had like jinn caught on camera. I kid you not, one guy's in this house and he's finding these scraps of paper. And he finds one that looks like it's like covered in, like it's red, like blood. As he goes to touch it to open it, the floor lights on fire. And I kid you not, these are actual video footage things that he will debunk. And he tries to debunk before he shares it. I'll send you it, Jimmy, the channel. You guys see what you think. One of the guys, actually, he made the top 2 list, and he's a friend of mine, Rick Wade. And he went and he was at a party, a wedding, and he had gotten permission. He was upstairs because he is actually a psychic and medium. He kept hearing a little girl, I believe it was. So he went upstairs and he just started taking pictures and video. And you see a little girl twirl by on the outside of the camera in a party dress. And so he
God,
about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they're real.
That's the scary thing for me is when it involves children. Like my mom, going back to the house that we had just moved into when we first came back to California. At the time, me and my dad were living in Arizona still because I hadn't graduated high school yet.
Okay.
But my mom and my 2 younger siblings were living at the home here in California.
Right.
Dad, correct me if I'm wrong, but Joaquin was at school and Javen wasn't even home, right?
What story are you referring to?
The baby.
Oh no, your brother wasn't there, and yeah.
So both of them weren't home. My mom was the only one home. Either she had just got done putting a load of laundry into the wash, or just got done doing dishes. Either way, she turned around from the kitchen to walk towards where the bedrooms are, and she happened to see a baby, run from the room, which was my room where I heard that giraffe.
Right.
Run from that room in front of a mirror into their room, into their master bedroom, and she was the only person there. And I could tell you right now, she's one who does not want to believe this stuff, and she gets absolutely terrified. Mm-hmm. So for her to even see something and then tell everyone it's a big thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, that I think that comes into a big picture of people that want to believe or not believe or whatever, that they get in this thing is that because they grew up with whatever their religion or their thoughts of stuff is, they don't want this to be actually true and they discount it. because they've been programmed to think this is the way life should be. It's like even a lot of things there with people think that they're programmed through school to figure that people that are in government have your best interests at heart, and they don't.
But that's a whole different show. But I hear what you're saying, though, that for your mom to say something that really had to have a huge effect on her.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. So now that are you guys still in the same house, or is you Jim that's in the house and you're living on your own now, Bo?
Yes, yeah, I'm living on my own now with my wife and daughter.
Oh.
Just purchased my first home back in November.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
Having any paranormal activity, or how about you, Bo? Are you still?
I'll let him answer.
Yeah. So far, nothing. Mm-hmm. Hopefully. Oh no, I take that back. Okay. I take that back. When we had talked to our good friend, your nephew, my cousin's best friend, Brandon Yamaguchi, we hadn't even really started the episode yet, and I'm sitting. He's just starting to talk about his story, and something behind this green screen fell, smacked it. Whatever it was, but it scared the hell out of me, and it's all recorded. The only difference is that you couldn't see the green screen because I had something on there.
Okay.
But it's loud enough to where you can hear it, and it's extremely loud. And then, as of recently, like I said, I think I even sent you the video on Messenger. Something flew from him after we were talking about a ghost story.
Oh, okay. So you sent that to me. So you know what I might do if you're okay with it? I said I'll upload it to where I've been sharing it, so the people know.
Absolutely.
And then they'll want to come and look at your podcast and this episode. We are almost out of time. It's 10:47 my time here. We end about 10:55. So what about you, Jim? What are you experiencing still in your home?
Up until the last episode we were recording, I hadn't experienced anything in a while. And it goes back to my wife. You know, she is extremely afraid of what she can't determine, which is real or not. And the best thing I could tell her, just don't give it the energy. Just don't think about it.
Yeah. Yes.
Don't think about it. Don't give it the attention. It's not a being to where you're not gonna reprimand it. But at the same time, don't give it any attention, whether you think it's something coming from my family or something that we have here. But in the home that we're living in now, I haven't had any experiences, but I'll tell a quick story. The home that we live in now, it's her mom and dad's house. Her mom passed away 5 years ago. So we moved in here. It was only supposed to be for the summer, but now we're here 6 years later. So,
there.
Yeah. So, real quick story. My mother-in-law was a heart patient as well. And back in Arizona, this was about 03, 04. Well, I took her for a walk. And in Glendale, there's this really nice brand new library. Now, coming from the parking lot, going east to the street, there's a World War II memorial, which was basically the SS Arizona, the ship that started Pearl Harbor, the bombing of Pearl Harbor. So we walk up to the memorial, we're looking at it, and it's a bronze tree, and every leaf off the tree is a soldier's name. So we get there, we're talking. Uh-oh, are they frozen?
No,
still here.
Okay.
Still here.
So we get there, there's a gentleman, and she just had heart surgery, so we're walking slowly. We get up there, she's talking to a gentleman that's in a walker, and he's really upset. Basically, he was a soldier that was supposed to be on the ship at that time. And he ended up having to go on shore because of some sort of an appointment. Are you frozen, Jim?
No, we're all here. I don't know. We can hear you okay too, Big Jim.
Okay, yeah, I'll keep going. Good.
I'm just listening to the story.
Okay, that's fine. So they're talking and they're consoling each other because she's upset and he's upset. He had basically survivor's remorse. He felt like he should have been on the ship with all his shipmates.
Yeah.
So we're talking, we say our goodbyes. Now we're walking from the curbside where the memorial is up to the parking lot. It's about 50 yards. We're walking really slow. The gentleman is in a walker. We probably had a good 25-minute conversation with this guy, and he's telling us every soldier that he can remember, is telling us a little story. We're walking up the hill. We turn around to wave goodbye to the gentleman, and gone, disappeared, as if he wasn't even there. Now, mind you, he couldn't walk to the north or south of this block because Arizona streets are extremely wide, right. And this was a fairly new, and you can see Arizona's real. There's no overhanging wires, so you can see the sky, blue as night, blue as day, clear, and like I said, the gentleman was just gone. And I know for a fact that this gentleman, we touched him. We were able to smell his cologne. We were able to have interaction with him. He was I thought he was a real person, but he was gone in the thin air. And that was probably the last experience I had. Yeah, that I can, besides the little giraffe that he was talking about.
Mm-hmm. That was mind-blowing. What were you going to say?
No, I said, like, I had a similar experience that was at our last house. I went outside, left the house. I walked out the front door, down the steps, and turned, and we share a garage with our neighbor. And as I'm walking forward, I'm looking at their house. I turn around and I'm going into her van. All of a sudden, I see a reflection in the window of a woman, and I got a perfect. She's about 65 years old, blonde hair. She's wearing a red jacket with white stripes down the sleeve, wearing khaki pants and like rubber boat shoes, like stuff to do yard work and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I see the reflection of her in the glass as I'm opening up the van door. I turn around to go and look, like, because I don't recognize this person. She's not there in the front yard. So from 1 second she was there, I'm looking at her for like 4 seconds. Turn around, she's not even in the yard. She didn't run around the hedges, and all of a sudden she's gone. And I'm like, what was that? And I'm like, wow. And this woman, like, it was clear, like it wasn't even like it was like a blurry image. Like, I saw everything. I saw her face. I saw the wrinkles in her around her eyes and her face. Like, I could tell, like, she was like in her like 50s, 60s, whatever. And I was like, everything. It was like, wow. It's just, I turned around and went,
I mean, he touched this person.
Yeah, that's like, even crazier. That's wow.
Yeah, I agree. And I shook this gentleman's hand as we were leaving. I mean, it was a total interaction as if you and I talking right across from each other.